Hi, I'm Zimmermann, and I'm a Yukon fishing enthusiast. I've been fishing a lot of water in the Yukon, the Northwest Territories, and Alaska for the last 15 years. And what I've learned is it takes a very special approach to fish with families and kids. And that's our goal today on the Family Fishing Connection. Today is not about catching fish. It's about making a connection with each other, with nature, and with hopefully a fish. And sometimes, in order to remind myself of that, I leave my rod at home. While we don't want to complicate things, we also want to be prepared. You don't know if your trip's going to last you half an hour, it's going to last you a couple hours. So I bring along a few things that'll keep the kids comfortable and happy. Some of the things I bring are extra pair of socks and shoes, because the kids will inevitably get their feet wet. Jackets, layers. I bring bug dope, sunscreen, toilet paper, and of course we're in the wilderness, so bear spray. And really important is to have your fishing license and to know your regulations. Every water's different. And finally, and almost most importantly, is snacks. As we all know, kids that are well fed and have snacks are happy kids. We've talked about everything we're going to bring along today to have fun, but I haven't introduced my two companions for today. It's Max, 8, and Zach, 10. And you want to go fishing?
Yeah.
All right, let's go. All right, we're here at the spot, one of my favorite spots for fishing this lake. And the reason I picked this spot is, number one, it's safe. There's lots of room for the kids to meander around. It's not a fast flowing river. I can see the kids for quite a distance. Secondly, it's got really nice casting lanes. So you need a nice area, comfortable area for kids to cast. So kids have different abilities. They're going to cast at different levels, and it gives them a channel from which to cast and reel in without really getting tangled. Having said that, I also picked this spot because there's a deep drop off, which is good, and there's lots of structure. So there's logs and there's some weeds and that type of thing. And of course that holds fish. But it also means I might be untangling lines, but that's just part of family fishing. And it's nice to have a place where the kids can sit and kind of have a little base, even for a couple hours. You can drag chairs in if you want, but I see a nice log over there that I can lay out. The kids can sit there and they can just watch the day go by. So I think we should go get the kids to go get that log. So we've set up a little bit of a base here. It's nice to have your stuff in one area, otherwise it's all spread around. You'll spend half your time looking for it. And sometimes rain comes in, you got to pick up and go really quick, so it's nice to have it all in one place. We've got our logs set up, the boys are sitting comfortably. You may notice they've got a pocket knife, and I've taught them over the years how to use a pocket knife, and that's all part of the fishing experience and getting outside. When you're fishing, you got so much tackle and gear, and the kids are a part of the process. So I've found over the years it's important to have a place for them to just put things, because they don't know exactly which compartment and where. And if you don't give them clear instructions, stuff gets strewn all over and you're losing all kinds of gear. So I use a little basket. I kind of put it down and I can say, okay boys, put the pliers back in the basket, put the lure in the basket, put the split shot in the basket. And it's pretty easily understood, and at the end of it I just grab the basket, throw it in, take off, or I can just sort it all out later. When fishing with a family, it's really important to start with little rules and little tips to get the kids started, and then they'll start doing them as routine later on. So a couple things you'll notice, we've got our base camp set up here, we've got our gear and tackle in here, snacks over here, the little basket over here, and you'll notice over there I've got the rods lined up and the kids put them there. One of our rules is rods are always propped up, otherwise they'll lay it on the ground, it'll get stepped on, and then they've got nothing to fish with. It's a pretty simple one, but it's important. We're fishing a still water stocked lake, and I know in this lake there are rainbow trout and there's kokanee salmon. They're generally quite small, maybe 12 to 14 inches. I know there are a few big ones as well, but based on that, I've selected the gear that'll match that type of fish. What I've got for the kids is I've got about a 6-foot rod with maybe a 4-pound test. It's still got all the components that any adult rod would have. It's really good to get them used to this because this is the kind of rod they're going to use as they get older. It's got a drag, which is really important because when they're fighting that fish, it's important to have that drag set correctly. The handle you can reverse, you can put it on one side or the other, and it's rated for test up to maybe 8 pounds, this rod. So I typically put in about 4 to 6 pounds. It's enough to be able to pull off a snag. It's also enough to be able to pull in a pretty big fish. Now for those of you with really small kids who maybe aren't going to be casting much at all, it's no problem giving them a little Dora the Explorer or Spider-Man fishing rod, as long as they feel like they're part of the experience. They're probably not going to get into fish, but they're out there casting with mom and dad, and it's all good. Now we're going to talk about presentations, and we're going to get these kids fishing. I've been doing a lot of talking, and now it's their turn. When I say presentation, what I'm talking about is how are we going to get this lure or this bait in front of fish, and how are we going to present it to them? In still water like this, there's 3 different ways that I like to do it. Number 1, there's casting. Kids like to cast. They like to cast spoons or spinners. They just like to get active in casting. Number 2 is using a bobber and a fly with some weight. Number 3 is using a setup called a power bait setup, and I find that it's a little more passive, but it's highly effective. The first presentation is casting. We're going to use a really small spoon, and the reason we pick a small one is, number 1, these fish are small. So they have small mouths. There's no point in making it too big or they're not going to be able to get it. And what we're doing is we're attaching it to a swivel. A swivel is just a little clasp at the end that allows you to switch your spoon off and on. And we may have to add a little bit of weight, and we'll do that with something called split shot if we need, if we can't get the distance into where the fish are. Nice job. So he'll let that spoon hit the water, and then he's going to reel it in. He's going to reel it in just at the right speed so that he might entice a bite. Fish tend to generally hang out low, especially this time of the year. So it's important to give it enough time for that spoon to go down and get down to where the fish are. Rainbow trout are very finicky, and they're going to have a little hit on that, and he's got to be able to set that hook. When I say set that hook, that means feel that tug. He's got to pull that up and firmly plant that in the trout's mouth. Nice cast. Okay, to get Zach set up with our second presentation of the bobber, I'm going to need a bunch of things. So I'm looking for a bobber, which is basically a float. They make different kinds. I like this one because you can fill it with water and it's really good for casting. And then what I need is some split shot. And it's always good to get non-lead split shot. As we know, the lead split shot's not good for the lake, it's not good for ducks, it's not really good for anybody. So from the bobber, we go down to the split shot to get the line down, and then we go down to our actual lure. And the lure in this case is a fly. There's all different kinds of flies. There's wet flies and dry flies. Dry flies stay on the surface, wet flies go below. And we're trying to imitate different kind of bugs that are in this still water system. And I'll pick something that I think will work well under that bobber and that split shot. I like to use something with a little bit of a weighted head on it. It's called a bead-headed nymph. And I like to use that one, tie that one on. I find that it gets down, and with a little bit of twitching and retrieving on that line, you can make it imitate and look like a bug swimming in the water. There's a hole on this bobber. I'm going to feed it right through. There we go. Next, let's tie on our fly. You like that one? Okay. So we're going to tie on this beadhead nymph onto the end of this line. I've got this fly about 4 feet down. Now that's really light, so that's not going to cast very well. So what we've got to do is we've got to add some weight to get this fly down as well as to help casting. So Zach, grab that split shot. I've got my pliers. Let's go to the water and we'll fill up this bobber with water. Now this bobber is kind of unique in that it'll float, but you can also add water to it, which gives it some weight and allows it to cast. Now we're going to take a couple split shot here, just to add that weight to get the fly down. Otherwise, the fly is going to be sitting too high in the water and it's not going to get into fish. We're going to put the split shot about 8 inches up from the fly, and we just stick it in the line like this. And we take our pliers, and we pinch it closed. Nice cast. You have the bobber in the water. It's gone down because of the split shot, and we're just hoping there's a fish there that's going to come up and pop up and see that fly that's now sinking. That looks like a little bug. You never want to have slack in your line. If you have slack in your line, that means you're not going to feel the fish when it hits. So you want to have tension from your rod all the way to your bobber, and you watch that bobber, and if that bobber goes down, then you set your hook, and you may have a fish on. Max has got a little tangle, or a snag with his spoon, which is pretty common, so we're going to help Max get his snag off here one way or the other. One thing to remember when breaking off a snag is try not to use your rod like this when you're pulling on a snag, because what you can do, you can just break your rod. So what I like to do is keep your rod nice and flat like this, and just pull it back with the line, and just see. Now that's on pretty tight. That's not going anywhere. So before I give up on this one, we're going to try from a different angle. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, so we know what's on that side. So here, Max, I'm pretty tall, so let's see if I can get this unsnagged. Oh, oh, there's a frog.
What got it?
It's right there. All right. Well, what started out as a snag, whoa, has now ended up in a wildlife viewing opportunity with a frog. And see, all of a sudden the fishing became seriously secondary. Oh, he's a cute guy. And one of the best things about fishing with the family and fishing with kids is you just got to go with what's going on at the time. And in this case, we've got a nice frog that we can just check out. He obviously lives in this little environment, and he's a nice, friendly guy. Well, it's probably a good time to set up our power bait. You want to try that one, Max?
No.
Or you can find another frog. So I've got one rod already rigged up and for a power bait setup. You see this weight here, like that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's called an egg sinker, okay, or an egg weight. And from that we have about 3 feet of line to this little hook. That's a little treble hook. And a little treble hook is one with 3 prongs on it. We're allowed to use that in this lake. You're not allowed to use it everywhere, but in this lake we are. And Max is getting the power bait set up over there. What power bait is a scented product that trout and fish can't really resist. And what's really cool about power bait is it floats, and that's really important. If that power bait freezes, it doesn't float anymore. So it's really important to keep your power bait fresh and so it stays floating, and don't let it freeze. All right, now Max, you want to make a little ball about the size of your pinky nail. So what you do is you take your line, take your little ball of power bait like that, and you go about 2 inches up from that line and you stick it right on the line, and then we push it down right to the treble hook. And it's pretty much covering up that hook in total, which makes it, you know, kind of irresistible and a bit, it's hidden for the fish. We're gonna cast it out as far as we can, and that egg sinker is gonna go down to the bottom, and that power bait's gonna float up, and that power bait is gonna be suspended from the bottom up about, I guess it's more about 16 inches. So Max, you want to come give this a cast?
What way?
All right, let's reel it in a bit just to get it there. Okay. Zach, watch out. Always got to remind kids to look behind them before they cast, because we got a big hook on there. Okay, give that a go, buddy. Yep. Nice cast. That's perfect. It's out in the deeper water. It's going to sink. No, just let it go down. And now, just hold that. I'm going to grab something here. What I have is a little tool here that's going to help us down. And then we'll take this. All right. Oops, not like that. Now we want to reel it in to get it tight, just so we have tension in the line. And what's going to happen is the fish are going to swim by, they're going to suck in that treble hook and that power bait, and then they're going to take off. And then that's when we're going to see the tension on the line. So we have to keep an eye on this, and if this thing starts jiggling, we know we have a fish on. It is a very passive kind of fishing, and it's a great way to just throw it out there and leave it and watch it. So that gives us a great opportunity to go do other things, chase frogs, or have a snack. So the kids have had their snacks. So when they're happy, then I'm happy. And now gives me an opportunity to try and fish. Fishing's been a little bit slow here, but I'm just gonna keep trying and we'll see if we can bring one in. We've had a great day here today. The boys are happy over there whittling their sticks and chasing after frogs and a variety of things. That's just the nature of fishing with family and kids, is everybody works at their own pace and just kind of does what's comfortable to them. It may not look like it right now, but they still are fishing. We got a set line in the water here with a power bait set up, and we've definitely accomplished our goal today. We've connected with each other, we connected with nature, but we haven't quite connected with a fish yet. I'm not giving up, and with that, I'm Dennis Zimmerman, and thanks for joining us today on the Family Fishing Connection.